and she said something, and you told her something, and you didn't want it to go anywhere, you know, it pretty well stopped with her. Sometimes she didn't even tell me. So other times she did, knowing that it was necessary to tell me. But I'm just saying that she was that way. She had if you just knew how much she supported you. She may not always been 100% behind everything you did, but she was supportive of you, helpful to you. So I'm hoping and praying that we just take a moment, and then we're going to have Brother Harney come and sing for us here in just a little bit. But let's just remember, you know, the Bible says, honor to whom honor is due. And I think my wife deserves some honors. Okay? She may not be here physically to hear that, but I just want to take that opportunity to do so today, if we could, for just a few moments. Now, what I want to do, because I don't want to egg this on, or I don't want to or promote anything. I'm just going to kind of sit to the side over here, and one at a time, if we need it, we'll get somebody, just in case there's somebody with a weak voice. Yeah, Zach. And take that mic to them if you want to. There may be some of you didn't know my wife, or didn't know. It's a good time for you to reflect back upon it. But she was with me from day one, when we went out and passed out flyers to every house in the town of Salem. Her and I did it ourselves. And she would go one side of the street, I'd go the other. We just left flyers down, letting them know we were going to start the church here. For the very first Thursday night that we met over in the building, we met for about 5 Thursday nights and started teaching what the church was going to be about, and all that. We went through the Bible and some of the basic Bible doctrines for the church and so forth. And we met over there, and she was with me every step of the way on that, from the very foundation to what we have in recent days. She's been a big part of that. So anyway, I'm going to kind of sit down here, and you take a moment to reflect on something maybe personal, or something that would be reflective of something that happened, or just a memory along the line that will remind us of just how much she's been a part of these 36 years.
Can I be first? I'll try not to take long. Okay. Just say no. That was Tina's first expression to me. And I had come back to help my mother take care of my father when he came down with cancer in '89. And she was probably the first beautiful light I got to see for a while, after I stopped traveling 20 years in the ministry. And I was trying to follow God's leadership. I really was. And to find a church. And of course, my home church where I grew up, and it really wanted me to come and be a part of that, but I couldn't. I just couldn't. And there were others that was hinting pretty strongly for me to come and be a part of their ministry. And Tina come up with this little, well, it's a pretty big pen, just say no. And she gave that to me, and you know, it spoke volumes to me. Of course, the Lord was behind it. I was listening to the Lord, but I listened to Tina too, because I know that she was opening a door to me that I was wanting to walk through, and that I really felt the Lord was wanting me to walk through. And here I am still. That's my testimony of the remembrance of Tina from the get-go. Just say no. And I pretty much had to a lot of things that the Lord didn't want me to be a part of.
When I think of Tina, one thing that always pops into my mind, first thing that pops into my mind, is that her murder for her dad. to get saved, and just how she said that the Lord laid it on her heart to pray for other people's fathers who were not saved. And that was just something that kind of stuck with me, and through everything that I go through with my own kids, and my 2 girls especially, and just to pray for other people's kids that are backslidden and just causing a lot of trouble. But just to pray for them, just like she, Lord laid it on her heart to pray for other fathers that were not saved. And that's just something that's meant a lot to me over the years.
Tina really meant a lot to me. One thing I remember is her tears. When she was getting a blessing, or someone was singing, or the preacher was preaching, or someone was testifying that touched her heart, you could look over at Tina and she'd be wiping tears. And I remember those tears. And I also remember one Sunday walking out of the church, and she came up to me and she said, "I love to hear you sing." And I said, "Oh, well, thank you. I never did think I could sing very well." She said, "Oh, I love to hear you sing." And she said, "I get such a blessing." And there was many times that when I would be singing, I would look at her, and the Spirit would bear witness. Her Spirit witness. And it really touched my heart. She was one that also, if someone came into church and they had little ones and there was no one for the nursery, Tina was always up there. She'd go out and she'd go to the nursery. There's a job to be done. And I look back on that now and I feel like that maybe the church failed her and that never stood by her and gave her enough glory and praise that she needed, because she was always helping everyone. She was very good pastor's wife of this church, and she's deeply missed. And Pastor, we truly love you, and we're all standing with you.
Here, I'm ready. Tina had, I don't know everybody knows, she didn't have gluten, she had celiac disease, didn't have gluten, and it was quite a challenge for her. And now it's easier and easier to come out and have more food. Anyway, a few years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, because I knew she had this problem, and I went to Whole Foods in Pittsburgh quite a bit to stock up on certain things. They have a good selection of gluten-free food, flour and so forth, that I said, Tina, will come with me. And so we arranged a time that she could join me on this grocery shopping trip. And so we had a wonderful time spending the time together. We came back, and it was early enough that we were able to stop and have must have been a very early, this is my memory, a very early dinner or late lunch at a beautiful riverside restaurant in Morgantown. And nobody else was there at that time of the day. Obviously, it was between noon and dinner time. And so we had a table by ourselves right by the river, and we spent the whole time talking about the Lord. And wish I could remember the conversation in detail. I know it was about the Lord, and we touched on many different bases. But it was spending that time together with Tina, and she just expressed her love and the dedication that was her life, that this was what she wanted to spend her life doing. I couldn't top that. I couldn't come close to topping that. And she knew it. When we came back, we spent a lot of time. I don't know how many times we got to spend alone together. She was a busy bee. And I had an older life. But when Tina passed away, one of the things I remembered was that she had spoken about a stained glass window that she would like to have, or would like to see someday at the rear of the church. If you're standing at the podium, you look directly back and you would see this beautiful stained glass window. And I said, oh, that would be beautiful. I said, do you have anything in mind? And she said, no. She said, I just thought that something there in stained glass would be really pretty. And I said, I think that's a wonderful idea. And have you talked to anybody else in the church about it? And she says, John knows about it. Anyway, she passed. That's what I really remember most, was that stained glass window that she'd like to have. And I mentioned, probably a month or two ago, that I was going to make sure that she got this stained glass window. If the church approved of it, all I wanted to do was make sure she got it. The church could handle what kind of stained glass, what the design was, everything. I just wanted to make sure that Tina's desire was fulfilled. Anyway, I mentioned this a few months ago here at the church. I made an announcement that I'd like to do this as a memorial to Tina. And it would be nice if we could get some donations toward it. I know it was going to be kind of expensive, but I was willing to pick up whatever is the cost is going to be left over. If you donate $1, that's a blessing. That would be a blessing.
More so, I may need this. First time, and not the first time, but early on when they were meeting over in the Red Barn, I was there and I was playing the piano that night. They didn't have a regular piano player at that time. And so I was asked to do that. And as I was playing, the piano sort of collapsed. And I ended up on the floor. And Tina and I was talking about this sometime later, not too long ago. And she said, do you remember what you said? And I said, no, what did I say? She said, you said, well, I must have been slain in the spirit. So I wasn't hurt or anything, but I did end up on the floor. Tina came into our family and she was an asset. And she just became a part of the family. And was always agreeable to help do anything that needed to be done. And I have 3 boys, and one of my boys told me, that she was his favorite aunt. And he has about, I think it's 3 or 4 aunts he has, but she was his favorite. And his death really affected me more than anybody else.
what she meant to everyone here and also to my brother. A pastor's wife is the glue that holds things together. They seem to fill up all the little empty spaces of things that need to be done and people whose lives need to be touched. She looks like that person. I remember Tina the last time she was at my home at Christmas time. And she was always a joy to have. And I remember when she walked in, I thought, she looked so pretty tonight. And there's today when she came, and that was my last time I really had a good conversation with her. And I really miss her. And I look forward to seeing her again.
You know, Tina had a funny side. And she and I used to send like Hanukkah cards to each other. Once we were at the Pirates game, she got me a yarmulke camouflage with the Pirates emblem on it. And of course, we used to call her Evangelist Tina Freeman. I think even, did George make a George even, George Griffiths took out a little thing in the newspaper, Evangelist Tina Freeman. And so we even made her, or actually I got her printed up, her PhD, her prophetess, holiness, diploma, license as an evangelist. So, yeah, she actually, had a very, very funny side, and I always enjoyed that. Of course, we would feed off each other, by the way. And we would enjoy doing little tricks to each other like that. So.
I won't be able to justify the story what Tina did. She loved to laugh. And this is the story that she told. I heard her tell it twice, actually, the story. And that was her cousin down in Kentucky who was involved, and I don't know who else was involved. But they took her cousin, and I don't know if they dressed him up, but they had him walking, dragging his hands like a monkey, and they had a strap on him, and they led him into a grocery store. He was doing this in a grocery store, and they took him to the produce aisle or something. There was like something, apple. Apple. So when I say apple, and they'd all just cheer. He was like a monkey and stuff. And she used to laugh so hard telling that story. And like I said, I told her, but I heard her tell the story twice. And both times you have tears in your eyes.
I miss Miss Tina. She was, I miss lots of things about her. I miss being a neighbor. I miss when we moved from here, because she was fun. I liked to giggle with Miss Tina. She'd come over to the back porch. I had a lot of yard sales, and she'd come over and talk and giggle. But I miss when me and Mary Ann did the flowers. It's not the same. I don't care what flower arrangement we did. It was always, oh my goodness, this is prettier than the last one. That's all we ever heard. And she would stand back and say things like that. And I miss her in Kids for Truth and her videotaping when she thought something was hilarious and would play it back for you. And I just miss Miss Tina.
When Sunday school moved out to the main room, she would always come in just a little bit late. She would open the door and she'd poke her head in. She's so apologetic, and all I could think was, my goodness, I hope she doesn't realize how I have no handle on anything here. Kids were rambunctious, but she'd always walk in and apologize. Oh, it's no problem at all. It's all good. My husband and I were talking about her a little bit this week. He said that she was his first Sunday school teacher here. And then somewhere along the way, Donna Terry started teaching, and he said she got put into the nursery. There was no door on the room. She was just behind a gate. She really got downgraded, didn't she? But he said, yeah, she was a great Sunday school teacher.
Tina was some personality that you never forget. She was kind-hearted, and she was very, very helpful to me when I lost my first wife. She was very, very kind to me. She'd always fix me some stuffed peppers. It seemed to be her favorite. And I loved her. And thanked her very, very much for them. But when I was standing up there leading the singing, her and Mary Ann came in a little bit late. I seen her walk in. I recognized Mary Ann, but I could not figure out who that woman was with Mary Ann. She looked very, very young. And it took me a while to figure out who she was. It did look like Tina. And it dawned on me it was Tina. I don't know if she changed her hair or what, but she looked completely different to me. But I'll always remember she was so kind. Had a sweet personality about her. And I just thought the world of her. I think the world of my pastor too. And my pastor done through some rough times. We were out on visitation. I believe it was on a Saturday down on the other end of town. I think we ran into the devil. He didn't want us around. I think the following Saturday, we was down the same street. And he came out and he was hollering at us before we even got to the house across the street. We wanted to make sure we didn't stop at his house. Anyway, that was his loss. But you think of what's happened to you and the trials that we've been through. The pastor gave me these words not too long ago. The things that we've been through are not by chance, I know. But because of my Father's wisdom, has willed to have it so. For the furtherance of the gospel is part of His great plan. You know, God can use our disappointments and the weakness of man. So I ask the Lord to give me faith to meet them bravely. The trials, I just don't understand. And to let God work His will in me. And to trust His guiding hand. And help me to shine a clear bright light. And not to live in vain. And help me hold forth the word of life. Triumph over pain. Those words here recently have helped me through some hard times. So this church and this team has been a great help for me. And my wife Doris now, what a blessing that she's been. I just thank God every day for her. So.
As Christians, we're supposed to be Christ-like, and people should see Christ in you. Whether man, woman, boy, or girl, if you're saved, people should see Christ in you, and that. So that Miss Tina, I've said many times with the pastor, and Miss Tina, you know, they don't only walk, they talk the talk, walk the walk, they lived it. And I can remember one story about Miss Tina, memory, I guess you'd say. How many of you knows when you're in a backslidden condition, the last thing you want to see is a Christian you know out in public? You try to run from them. I'm just being honest. I'm in church right here. You try to run from them. It's not that you don't like them. It's just that conviction. That's conviction. One time I come around the corner by the bread aisle right there at IGA, I don't know how many years ago, maybe 5 years ago. And you know, she could easily just turn her head and walk away, and some people would have, probably. But she came in the most polite way, said, I'm not pressuring you, but I'd like to see your smiling face back in that church. We've been in this church for 13 months, and I've tried to be faithful as we can be, and the Lord allowed me, I'll be here the rest of my days. Amen.
I'd like to say something about Tina. We were here for our first time about 2 years ago, and she was so kind and so loving and gracious to me. You don't get that everywhere you go, but she just made me feel so welcome as a woman coming in, just, you know, out of nowhere. And we just hit it off immediately. She was so friendly and so kind, and just made you feel at home and made you feel welcome. You didn't have to guess about it. She made you feel that way. And I just really hated to hear that the Lord had taken her home. When we got the news, it really just really shocked me and hurt me, but not for her, because she's in a better place. And she finished her work. I didn't cry for her, but I cried for us that are left, those that had the privilege of knowing.
We started coming here a long time ago. And I just wanted to say, one of the first memories I had, Pastor, of your wife, was this young lady coming in with this wee little baby girl in her arms. At the same time, my wife and I came into the church, and my wife had this little baby girl in her arms. And I never knew that those two little baby girls would basically grow up to be the Boxy Boys. Because they kept switching out places to visit about every Sunday after a while. And I'd get in the car, and there'd be an extra passenger, it'd be Mary Ann. And Pastor would come into his house, and there'd be an extra girl that would come to church. Tina always used to laugh and say that they were going to build a house right in the middle, see, and then we could come visit them. Put them in there. But Tina was like a second mom to Charity, and I guess all of her kids. And I just want to say I appreciate the fact that she adopted them the way she did, and that she was a friend of ours and a friend of theirs the way that she was.
Like Dawn said, Tina like Janice, and I don't know what she had done for the teenagers, but when we was in the old building, and I don't know who all was involved, I know my son was, but somebody had left a rubber mouse in the parking lot, or they found one somewhere. Well, Jeremy tied the string to it and had it on the porch, and some of the girls hollered for Tina that they was hurt. Well, when she come out that door, they pulled that rat across there. She threatened to kill them all. But none of them would own up to who got the rat.
I remember the first Sunday we came here in 2000, and after the service, DG took us downstairs to show us the building, and she was at the bottom of the steps. And I'll never forget her laugh. And I was like, man, she's gotta be the happiest person I've ever known. Who's always this giddy? And then another memory is today's 4 years since my dad passed away. And I'll never forget the night before, Pastor, you were at camp, but Mary Ann and Miss Tina came and sat with Mom there in the hospital. And that meant so much to me personally. I wasn't even there, I was at home. But just knowing, I mean, she's a pastor's wife, that's not her job. But she took time out, and Mary Ann too, and spent that with Mom, and I think that meant the world to Mom, honestly. And then another thing, the last thing I remember, the last Sunday night that she was here, I collect shot glasses. I've never drank a day in my life, but everywhere I go, I always get a shot glass. And she came up to me and she said, I have something for you. And I was like, what do you have? And she put out this shot glass. And it was an Old Tuscany, from the Old Tuscany movie set. And she handed that to me, and I'll never forget Mary Ann came up and she's like, what do you have? And I was like, a shot glass from your mom. She's like, she's had that my whole life. And I hold on to that shot glass. It's probably my favorite. It sits up at the top of my display case. And I look at that every day and think of Miss Tina. And I'll never forget her. And I only wish I could be half the woman that she was.
Memory I have of Miss Tina is when the ladies would be over in the building and do quilts. And a lot of times she'd be working. She'd rush in, help us a little bit, and then she'd have to rush over to the house and work on dinner. And then she'd come back. There was quite a few trips she made back and forth to the house, but she really loved helping with the quilts and stuff. And it was her mission to do those. And another memory is, I know she loves Come On Font. And every time I hear that song, I know she's hearing the most beautiful version now.
No, Miss Tina, well, someone could do it. But I remember, if you ever had a prayer request, and you took it to Miss Tina, she held it close to her heart, and you knew she was going to pray. She's such a faithful Christian. I love her so.
I'm gonna step over here where Joyce usually sits. Miss Joyce and Miss Tina. But Tina opened up doors for Joyce and I both that we probably would have never known. She loved to can. Joyce loved to can. And the reason I'm saying this is because Joyce and I was talking about this the other night together, just discussing how we miss Tina. And Tina just could fit in about anybody's world. She just made herself available to whoever would need her, or wherever she could get a good laugh, or, you know, just being a part of everybody's life. And she became such a great part of Joyce's life. And I can see the hurt that Joyce feels for her, not having her around. And she went out one day to help her can down in her basement. And Tina will never know how much that meant to her. But she was just something that Joyce needed.
When we started coming to church here last year, of course, everyone knew Jeff, but I was new. And my first impression was basically just Tina. I mean, I felt welcomed here by her. I felt, even it's just the 6 months that I knew her, or 7 months, however many, but like, I was probably closest with her. She was just so easy to talk to, just a bright light, and it was always a pleasure to see her. And when we were at home sick, of course, with COVID as well, and when we got the news, and we were, like, I was still sick afterwards and still quarantined, and that she passed, I know that Jeff and I just sat in the living room just weeping and holding on to each other, and that just speaks volumes of how short of a period that I knew her, how much she touched my life and my soul, my heart, that her passing has really, really affected me. But I'm just grateful to have had the opportunity to meet her and meet someone like her, and someone who just, it's like she oozes it. And like I said, she just shines so bright, and you can just see how strong her faith is, and just meeting her for a few moments. And I just am in awe of that. And would just love to reach that caliber that she lived and, existed. So I'm just grateful to have been able to meet her. Thank you.
I'm somewhat speechless. That's not easy for me. And I was on the other side of the fence so often at funerals and places and trying to minister to people. I really didn't think it would take me long to get over it. And as much as I loved her, I wanted someone that I knew would love me. And she sure did. I don't know how you're going to take this, but after she passed away, my daughter started pulling pictures out. And all the ones from we could find. We didn't have a lot of her before I was married. And so I went to Kentucky a couple weeks later, and they started pulling out pictures. Tina never talked a whole lot about, to me, she did to the girls, but she didn't talk a whole lot to me about, her teenage years and so forth. And all of a sudden her family, her sister and different ones started pulling out pictures. And Connie kept saying, her sister, says whenever we go out together, everybody run to Tina. She felt the rejected one and put back. And she had this picture. You can think about this however you want to think about it. She had gone to the beach and she was dressed in beach clothing. And all these guys were around her. And Connie said everywhere we go, the guys would just flock to her. But she said when she sent me all the guys disappeared and all these other things in her life began to go away. She loved me. Not like Jesus loves me. I'm just devastated by the loss. And now I know how some of you felt. I know a lot of you have been praying for me. I thought I was stronger to handle some of this. But I also love the Lord. But everybody hit the mark today as far as what my life, what she was like was pretty much what she saw at home. She had one side too that some of you maybe didn't pick up on. And that was she was a wildcat. She'd claw your eyes out if you got out of line. You didn't see that sometimes, but that was true. And like I said, she was as human as they could be, but had a burden to want to see people saved, people come to the Lord and pray. You ask me why God didn't answer our prayers. I don't know that. As we preach on Job,
we've got to put things in the sovereign hand of God. I don't know altogether, but I do know this. I know she was ready to go.
Amen.
And I'm not just talking about ready to go because she's going to heaven. I'm talking about she was ready to go. And some of you probably didn't see that. She wanted to go home. I don't feel rejected by that. I felt comforted really by that. But you pray as we, as a church, as I, as a pastor, discern the will of God. And when you're grieving, you don't discern things the way you should. So pardon me for being a little human today, but I mean what I say behind the pulpit, and I try to live it. I just want to do the will of God. So continue to lift me up in prayer. Continue to reflect on what Teeny is. Don't try to fix me. Just pray, support.